Good morning, and welcome into another episode of Gumball Sports Machine. Monday, the first day of July 1st. Brand new month. June was very fun, very eventful. NBA Finals, things like that. Olympic trials. Um, Heated month of baseball. So June was a very eventful month. Hopefully, July can be some of the same with the Olympics coming up. Also, it was the weekend, and again, you see, I'm not on my own. Kev, what's going on, brother? Uh-oh. Did we lose Kev? Okay.
Happy Monday, everyone.
Hey, bro. Monday is the first day of a fantastic week, is what I like to say. Very productive, very happy, very smiley weekend. But
I want it to be Friday again.
I don't blame you. I kind of want it to be Friday again, too. But that's not the case. It's Monday. It's a brand new week of brand new episodes of Gumball Sports Machine. That's how I think about it. So I like
Nope,
it.
I'm
But
out. Leaving.
all right. So we're just heading into our first segment. Something to chew on. Well, it's not really much of a first segment. It's this we're basically just gonna take the entire show as something to chew on. But we'll um where is this is awkward. Oh, well, we'll play the graphic anyway. All right, this weekend, the first Sunday at 3:00 started NBA free agency. And now I do want to. We're going to be going over a lot. A lot of things happened this weekend, and we're mainly just going to go over the entire show, literally NBA free agency, the entire show. But this did come down. So this is breaking news. The Boston Celtics majority ownership group, led by Wyc Grousbeck, I believe is how you say his name, is planning to make the franchise available for sale. Sources tell ESPN. The investment group purchased the team in 2002. This is a massive development per Adrian Wojnarowski of ESPN. Kev, obviously this is just coming down literally 4 minutes ago. Obviously the Celtics just won the championship, and you don't usually see teams who won the championship go for sale not even a month after they win the championship. What are your initial thoughts about this?
Maybe the only reason why the owner is doing that is getting money out from it. Selling at the highest point possible. Coming in off the championship. I feel like the profit is a lot bigger that way. Instead of like selling a team where that's a poverty franchise. You just want to. I feel like you just want to chip, so you gotta sell at the highest point.
I mean, it very well could be that. I tend to lean in the other direction. I think something happened. I think there's something going on inside the organization that it's probably not should be happening. Especially when you come off a championship, and then as good as the Celtics are and how promising of a future that they have, a lot of people are talking about building a dynasty and just being good for many years to come. I think something happened inside the organization. I don't know. Obviously, we've had multiple situations. Robert Sarver is one of those guys with the Suns who was just not a good human being, and so he had to sell the organization. Donald Sterling is another one. I believe that's his name. I believe that's Donald Sterling, the former owner of the Clippers. With him and how he had to sell the organization, how bad of a human being he was. So I think something has to be going on inside the organization. I could be wrong. I could be very wrong. But in order for something like this to happen, for the team, for the majority ownership to be selling after you win a championship, as well as the bright future that the Boston Celtics have, I don't know what exactly is going on with that. That just coming down. And then some more Celtics news that came down about 20 minutes before that. Boston Celtics guard Derek White has agreed on a 4-year, $125.9 million extension to stay with the Celtics. Obviously, a huge deal. Derek White being a huge part of the NBA of the Boston Celtics winning the NBA championship. Kev, what are your initial thoughts about Derek White extending and the deal that he got?
How many years is it? You said 4?
4 years, 125. So it's about, oof, man, that's a pretty good chunk of change.
It's about like what, 30 mil?
About 30 a year. Yeah, that sounds about 30 a year.
I mean, do I think he is a superstar caliber player where he deserves 30? No, but we've seen flashes and we've seen moments of what Derek White can do, taking over games. You've seen we've both seen streaks of what he can do when he catches fire. I mean, look at this year's playoffs. In the first round against the Heat, he went bonkers. And then throughout the rest of the playoffs, he's not like Jason Tatum or Jalen Brown type of player, but he's a player where you put him in a championship team, he's one of the most important players on that team, alongside with guys like Drew Holiday and Al Horford and Kristaps Porzingis, where they're not technically like the main or second option on a championship team, but on a contending team and a championship team like that, you need guys like Derek White to step up in case of your stars are not playing well. He can offer you defense. He can offer shooting, some playmaking as well. You can start him at the 2. You can bring him off the bench as a 6 man. With Derek White, he's very versatile, and I think it's a very smart re-signing by the Celtics, because they wouldn't have gone that far without the likes of Derek White.
Yeah, I agree. Derek White had a huge impact on that team. Obviously, with the defense that he was able to play on high level, very, very high level top guards in this league. Again, guys like Halliburton before he got hurt, Donovan Mitchell before he got hurt, Darius Garland. Guys like that. He didn't really go up against Jimmy Butler because he was hurt. But Tyler Hero, and really competing against those guards, Luka Doncic, Kyrie Irving. I think defense alone, I think it was a great signing, but his ability to shoot the ball and produce offense when the stars are not producing is such a key role. And that's why Drew Holiday and Derek White were so important to that team. And the two of the biggest reasons why they went out and won the championship and really ran through the entire NBA, whoever they played, injuries or not. So Derek White was a huge piece of that puzzle. So congrats to Derek White. He got himself a nice bag. But the Celtics, I will say this. I think they have, with the starting 5 they have right now, I think they have maybe a 1, maybe 2-year window left to win another one, because they're not going to be able to pay everybody. You paid Drew Holiday like about a month or 2 ago. You just paid Derek White. You gave Jalen Brown $300 million last year. Jason Tatum is going to want at least $300 million coming up with his new contract.
Tatum's for sure getting a super max. There's no
Absolutely.
reason why he's not getting one.
Absolutely. And because of that, there's maybe a 1 or 2 more year window in order to go out and win 1 or 2 more championships, because this team will have to be broken up some way, somehow, because you will not be able to pay it. We won't be able to have $200-300 million guys on your payroll and still have room for guys like Derek White, Drew Holiday, Porzingis, and guys who can actually produce. Again, the Celtics were very good this year, obviously, by winning the championship, winning 67 games. But there's only so much more of a window in which they can go out and actually compete, or not compete, but win a championship, because all the guys that they're paying on their roster. So that also just coming down about half an hour ago. But obviously, Kev, you saw all the signings that happened yesterday, and all the rumors that were going on. What was the one besides Paul George? Because we're going to get into that in a few minutes. Besides Paul George, what is the signing that's really stood out to you most?
There's actually a lot, but I'm gonna name 2 signings where we might not talk about as much because they're not like superstar signings, but they're signings where it's like, I think, perfect for the team. And the first one I'm gonna say is the Andre Drummond signing to the Sixers.
Okay.
I feel like they needed someone to back up Joel Embiid because of his availability with his past injuries and his and at times even when Joel is playing, he's banged up, he's hurt, he's not 100% healthy. And you're not gonna have Paul Reed be the backup center because he's naturally a four. He's only 6'9", 240. And then, but you bring in someone like Andre Drummond, who has proven to be a starting center, for the Detroit Pistons, and how he did in the past. And he's not the same Andre Drummond like he once was, averaging about like 15 points, 15 rebounds a game. But you plug him into a team that if Embiid is not on the floor, you're not going to lose much production as the whole team with Drummond as your big, covering for Embiid, because not only does he give you rebounding, he gives you, still a good lob threat. He still offers interior defense. I think he's a perfect signing for the Sixers, and I think they needed that. I was a little sad, not sad, but I was a little surprised that the Thunder didn't make a signing for Drummond. But the next time I get into is who was signed by the Thunder was Isaiah Hartenstein, who I think is an amazing signing for them. It might not get talked about as much as a Paul George signing or a Mikal Bridges trade, but I think Hartenstein should be up there for one of the most important signings for a team because of the lack of center that depth that they have over there. With Chet Holmgren, he's 7'1", but he's not that big. And so you bring in someone like Hartenstein, he can offer the paint presence, and he can offer size in the paint, and I think it's just perfect. I think if OKC wants to run a lineup of a big lineup, you can have Hartenstein at the five and Chet at the four, and I think you'll be fine. I think that's an excellent signing by them as well. I think the Drummond signing and the Hartenstein signing, I think both signings were very beneficial for both teams, and I feel like those two signings should get talked about way more than other signings.
Yeah, no, especially in terms of the Drummond signing. I don't know if you remember, but this is a reunion. Andre Drummond was traded to Philly a few years back from LA, and played about half the season, a little over half the season in Philly. So Drummond has no, he will have no problem playing behind the beat as he already has. So bringing in a big like Drummond to, like you said, to come in off the bench and produce something while Embiid is off the floor. Andre Drummond is a career 12-12 guy. Andre Drummond has been one of the best rebounders in the league for years, about a decade actually. So his ability to go rebound, he can still catch a lob or two every once in a while. He can still play defense. He's a big physical body in the paint. Now he's not going to put his back to the basket and go give you 20, 25. He's not that guy anymore. But coming off the bench, giving Joel Embiid a 5-6 minute rest so that Joel Embiid can come back, ready to come back and score however many points he does. Andre Drummond is a perfect guy to fill that role. Again, like I said, he's used to playing that role. He's played that role before. So Andre Drummond's going to come in. He's going to rebound the ball. He's going to play defense, and he's going to catch a few lobs, maybe a few putback layups off offensive rebounds. So Andre Drummond, I do love that signing. Isaiah Hartenstein is a very interesting one to me. Now, if you're going to start Isaiah Hartenstein, you can have a twin towers like Minnesota Timberwolves have, and Rudy Gobert and Cat. Obviously, one of them can't shoot, one of them can. Same thing they got in Minnesota. So it'll be very interesting. I don't think Isaiah Hartenstein is the shot blocker that Rudy Gobert is. I think rebounding, I think they're very comparable. But Isaiah Hartenstein is a big body. He played very well for the Knicks in the playoffs, especially when Mitchell Robinson went out. And he got a big deal, man. He got a big contract. So it'll be very interesting to see how he bounces back from the performance he had in the playoffs, and if he's able to keep that up going to OKC, just depending on the role that he has for OKC. I'm sure it'll be along the sides of the same role, pick and roll, offensive rebounds, give your team more chances throughout the game, especially when you have guys like Shea and Jalen Williams and Isaiah Joe, who they brought back. Who I love Isaiah Joe. So I think
I love Casey Wallace on that team.
Yeah, Case and Wallace. I also brought back Aaron Wiggins, so they're really running it back, and they went out and got a huge piece in Isaiah Hartenstein, another big guy who can. And that's one thing they were lacking, especially in the series against Dallas, was size. Derek Lively and Daniel Gafford really showed who they are by rebounding the ball, catching lobs, really, and then they really showed their size. They showed their size and they emphasized their size. So OKC went out this season, got Isaiah Hartenstein and upgraded. But I think the move that I love the most, is Chris Paul going to San Antonio. A lot of people are saying Chris Paul and Wemby, which is going to be ridiculous. Chris Paul is 39. Obviously, he's not the same player he was even 4 years ago, 3 years ago when he came to the Suns. But Chris Paul and him developing Wemby, turning him into that superstar player that he will be even sooner than a lot probably will be expecting, I think is going to be huge for San Antonio. Wemby obviously winning Rookie of the Year, being All NBA first team defense, being runner-up for Defensive Player of the Year, and I didn't even say anything about his offensive game. Wemby can shoot the three. He can shoot the mid-range. He can play with his back to the basket. He can go catch lobs. He can drive to the basket. He is so dynamic as a basketball player. I wouldn't be surprised if he's not a top 10 player by the end of the season, especially playing with Chris Paul. But that's not even the main reason. That's not even like the biggest reason why. Devin Vassell is going to impact greatly from Chris Paul being there. If you look at it, Chris Paul, if you look at the guards that Chris Paul has made great, when you look at guys like SGA, when you look at Devin Booker, when you look at even James Harden, Chris Paul have taken those guys' games to another level anytime he's played with them. Devin Vassell is a very, very good player. He can score the ball at a very high level. Devin Vassell being able to learn from Chris Paul, not only Devin Vassell, but Stephon Castle, the rookie that they just drafted, Chris Paul is going to have a huge impact on those guys. San Antonio is a very young team. So when Chris Paul gets his hands on those guys and is able to teach them and show them the way almost, because Chris Paul, he's not the same player. He's not going to be expected to go out and drop, 25 points, 13 assists every night. No, this signing was mainly to help develop Wemby and help develop the rest of the young guys like Devin Vassell, guys like Stephon Castle, even Jeremy Sohan, who showed some steps last year. So I love the Chris Paul signing to San Antonio. That is probably my favorite signing of the weekend.
Alongside with Pop, Chris Paul and Pop too.
I mean, and having Chris Paul out there is like having another Pop out there, or having another Pop on the floor, like on the court, playing with the guys. So, and the way that Chris Paul and Pop are going to work together, I would not be surprised if San Antonio made the playoffs this year. I'm just going to say that. I would not be surprised if San Antonio makes the playoffs this year. Kev, what do you think about the Chris Paul signing in San Antonio?
I like that signing. I still think there may be another player away from having a solid team. I just think that team is too young to where I like Devin Vassell. I think he's a very good two-way player. I would want to see a more of a leap from Jeremy Sohan because he's shown flashes of what he can do. Keldon Johnson too. I think he's another player that is also good that you didn't mention, but I think they might be just one player away from being a good team in the West. I'm not saying they're gonna be a contending team in the West, but right now with the signing Chris Paul, they could be a play-in team. But I just think they're one more player away from being a top team in the West.
And I don't necessarily disagree with you, but I also don't want to underestimate Chris Paul and his effect on these other young players. Yes, it's a very young team. I don't think you realize people were saying the same thing about the Suns in 2021. The same thing. Oh, Chris Paul's going to this team, but that's still a very young team. They're very unexperienced. That team went to the NBA Finals and went up 2-0 against the eventual NBA champions. Now, that team was probably better built to go deeper into playoffs. Don't get me wrong. But, again, I don't want to estimate the Chris Paul effect. Going into San Antonio with a player like Wemby, who is, again, not even close to his absolute peak as a basketball player. But again, going at Devin Vassell, I'm not sure exactly how you say his name, but Devin Vassell, again, Jeremy Sohan, and I'm so glad you mentioned Keldon Johnson. Keldon Johnson is I think a fantastic young player. I think he's amazing. So going into that, it's it's going to be very, very fun to watch. I think that's going to be a very fun team to watch in San Antonio with Wemby and Chris Paul and Keldon Johnson and Jeremy Sohan, Devin Vassell. So I think that do not sleep on that team. I love the Chris Paul signing. I love that Chris Paul signing for San Antonio. Definitely looking forward to watching them. But let's get into it, man. The biggest signing of the weekend, obviously, 4 years, $212 million. Paul George goes to sign with the 76ers. The 76ers were busy this weekend. Obviously, they bring in Paul George. They re-sign Tyrese Maxey. He got 5 years, 202, I believe. They bring in Eric Gordon. They re-signed Kelly Oubre. They were busy. They were very busy this weekend. But starting off with, obviously, the Paul George signing. Kev, do you like this signing? Obviously, he was almost the entire free agency. He was not expected, but a lot of people were assuming he was going to go sign with Philly. Now that it's actually happened, Kev, what are your thoughts on Paul George going to Philly?
You brought up the contract, and I'm over doing the math. Like, is that 50 mil a season right there?
Yeah, possibly a little more.
Damn. I don't know. I think that it might have been a little overpaid by the Sixers, but it's a sign that they needed to bring in someone like Paul George. But I'm like, damn, like you just pay Tyrese Maxey that much money and B's on that contract, and then like they basically can't sign no more players unless they get the vet minimum now.
Yeah.
I think it's a good signing for them. Do I still think? Do I think now that they're contenders in the East? I'm gonna still say no. I think they're maybe the third or the fourth best team in the East. Still, I don't think they're up there with New York or Boston yet. Um, I just
You think they're better than Milwaukee?
that's who I had 3 and 4, Milwaukee and Philly. I think those two teams are 3 and 4.
Okay.
I think Philly right now has the edge over Milwaukee because if you look at their best players, Giannis and Embiid, it's a toss up. You can't go wrong with neither one of them. And they've both been MVPs. They're both top 5 players in the league, so you can't go wrong with one of them. And then you look at the supporting cast from the season that both these guys had last year, Tyrese and Dame. It could be a toss up as well. Tyrese definitely was balling out last year, and Dame had a little bit of an off year last year. So they're pretty neck and neck in my opinion. And then when the signing of Paul George, I think who's a lot better than Chris Middleton. I think Philly right now has the edge over Milwaukee. It all just goes down to the depth that they have on their team, and I think they have some depth on their team as well. So I like what Philly's cooking up here. I just don't think that they're going to be one of the biggest threats in the East. I still think Boston has a good chance of repeating. I think New York, being the second seed this past season, has a good opportunity to also get back the number 2 spot in the East. So it's gonna be a very interesting battle in the East. The Paul George sign does actually help them a lot more. I think instead of being a first or second round exit, they could be the high. I feel like they can go to Eastern Conference Finals depending on where the seeding is and who they play along the way. But I think Philly did get better after the Paul George signing. I'm just still shocked that he's getting paid over 50 mil. Like, me personally, I don't think he deserved that much money. I would have said somewhere in the 40s, nowhere past that, because we really haven't seen much of what Paul George has been able to do ever since his 2018 season when he was in MVP voting. So I think it's a big upgrade for Philly, and I think it's a spot where Paul George can go to, and he doesn't have to demand the ball as much with Embiid and Maxey running the show over there. So I think it's a good. It's going to work out for both sides, Paul George and the Sixers. I just can't see them contending the East as being one of the biggest threats in the East.
So I really like the signing for Philly, and I really like what they've been able to do over the past 24 to 48 hours. Because you bring back Kelly Oubre, you re-sign Tyrese Maxey, and then you also bring in Eric Gordon to help off the bench. You bring in Andre Drummond. So you're really building this team. Like they're going at it. They are not wasting any time. Free agency started yesterday at 3:00. I think they've almost filled out their entire roster of whoever they need to go. I think they might be done at free agency, because Paul George. The only thing that worries me about Paul George, no, a lot. Two things worry me about Paul George. Will he be able to stay healthy? Will he perform in the playoffs? We have seen both of those things go completely south for Paul George. Paul George has been a very, very good player for a long time. He's one of the most skilled. We bring up these pure skill guys. He's one of the most skilled basketball players to ever touch a basketball. He just doesn't show it when he absolutely needs to the most. In 2021, he was fantastic. He was fantastic. He carried his team to the Western Conference Finals. They ended up losing, but even he did it without Kawhi Leonard. He was fantastic. He was very good. Last year, he had maybe 2 good games, maybe, and then the other 4 games disappeared. I don't even know if he played. So, can he show up in the playoffs when they absolutely need him to? Now, last year he didn't have Kawhi. He did have James Harden, but we both know James Harden and Paul George aren't exactly the first 2 players off the board in terms of playoff performers. So again, they had their moments. They did end up flaming out. Didn't work out very well. The previous year in 2022, Paul George gets hurt. Gets hurt against this early or at the end of the regular season. Gets hurt, misses the playoffs. And so that's kind of been in 2020. They go up. What did they go? They were up against the Mavericks and then lost that series. They were up 3-1 actually, right?
I think it was against the Nuggets.
No, that was the Mavericks, and the bubble.
I'm pretty sure it was the Nuggets in the bubble.
Clippers playoffs 2020. Yeah, it was the Mavericks.
Okay.
Yeah, it was the Mavericks. They were up 3-1. No, they're up 3-2. They're up 3-2, and they ended up losing. No, wait, what am I looking for? September. No, okay, no, you're right. They beat the Mavericks that year, I'm pretty sure. And then they lost to the Nuggets in
3-1?
game.
When they're up 3-1 and then they choked the series?
Yeah. Okay, that was the Nuggets. You're right. That was the Nuggets. So their playoff career, like his playoff career has not been very good since he's left Indiana. So will he be able to perform in the playoffs, and will he be able to play alongside 2 other stars who I believe are better than him? Paul George will be a third option in Philly, and they're paying him $50 million. I think he's getting paid more than Tyrese Maxey is getting paid. But Philly, that's just the move that Philly wanted to make to bring in that third star. And again, will he be able to compete with, the Chris Middletons, like you said? I believe he's better than Chris Middleton. Will he be able to compete with the Jason Tatums, the Jaylen Browns of the world? There's a lot of good wings. There's a lot of good wings in the East. So it's really based on him. It's really based on him whether he'll be able to perform or not. But so you said they're a top 4 team in the East.
Yeah.
Behind Boston, New York, Milwaukee.
I think right now I think I have them over Milwaukee.
Oh, okay. So you have them over Milwaukee right now.
I think they're top 3.
Okay. And this is obviously a big 3 that's a little different. The other big 3s we've seen are kind of 3 of the same players. Right now in Phoenix, Devin Booker, KD, Bradley Beal, 3 of almost the very same players. In Brooklyn, KD, James Harden, and Kyrie, 3 very, very identical play style players. Now you have a guard, a wing, and a big. 3 completely different positions, 3 players that are in the top echelon of their position group in the entire league. So it'll be very interesting to see. Do I think they will win a championship this year? No. I think they'll be a lot better in their second, third year. of their tenure together. So I don't think they're going to be very good. No, let me stop. I don't think they're going to be at their best this year. I think they're going to be good. I don't think they're going to be at their very best. I think their window of opportunity to win a championship is Paul George's second and third year of that deal. So again, also, hindering on injuries and other things that happen. So I think it's a good signing, though.
They don't have money to bring in Klay Thompson anymore, huh?
No. I mean, the only way Klay Thompson has to go on a vet min.
Because, and this is like a 0.1% chance of it ever happening, but if Klay signs with that team, even though the memes about the 0-10 elimination game is like everywhere on social media, but if you have a lineup of someone of Maxey, Klay, George, and who is at the four, Oubre and Embiid, that's a solid starting five right there, in my opinion. But that's only in the 1% chance in the world. Actually, are we gonna talk about Klay Thompson as well, or is that for the show? Okay.
Oh yeah.
When we get to that segment, I saw a post about Klay with this one team, and I like to bring it up on the show.
Okay. Yeah. No. We're for sure gonna get to Klay Thompson, because obviously Klay Thompson. You know how I feel about Klay Thompson, and we're gonna get to it. But so Philly, I think, can contend in the East. I don't think they will win the East. I agree with you. I think, except I think I'll put Milwaukee above them. I think I put Milwaukee above Philly for now. That may change, but I do want to ask. Staying on this Paul George conversation, was Paul George's tenure in LA with Kawhi Leonard, was that a complete failure? They now let me actually remind you, they've won three playoff series since 2019. 3 playoff series. While Paul George was there. They were 13-13 overall in the playoffs. So again, I ask you, was the Paul George era in LA with the Clippers a failure?
I'm gonna say yes. And from what you said, the playoff record is at 500, which is, in my opinion, is okay, but it's not good. And then when that trade first went down too, well, not the trade, but when the signs first went down with Kawhi, and then the trade with the Paul George from OKC to LA, everyone in the whole entire world had them as one of the best teams in the West. The best wing duo. But we haven't seen much of them. The farthest that they ever gone to was the Western Conference Finals, and the thing is, though, that sucks about the whole entire era that went down is when you have one guy that's healthy, most of the times the other guy isn't healthy. It could either be Kawhi being available or Paul George being available. But the other times, if Kawhi's available, Paul George isn't. If Paul George is available, Kawhi isn't. So I think it was a failure because they just couldn't stay healthy and play as a team at all times. So I think that's what kind of screwed them over. And also for the Thunder completely fleecing the Clippers off of that SGA trade as well, where SGA is looking like a top 5 player in the league right now, and he's only what 25, 26.
Yeah,
and
very young.
and the Thunder were just the 1 seed last season, and they're only going to get better with the Alex Caruso signing, and not the sign but the trade, and the Isaiah Hartenstein signing. So they're only beefing up their roster even more. So while they're getting better, LA's getting worse, and LA has like a bunch of old players as well. So and not to mention the Thunder, they got like what 7 first rounders from them on that trade, or I think
So
even
many.
more.
No, I think
So
it was 4 first rounders, and I think 3 first round pick swaps.
yeah, so I mean, I think it was a complete failure for the Clippers with the Paul George and Kawhi duo. Would I want to see them in the finals? Yes, it would have been fun seeing them in the finals competing against teams in the East. But overall, of what they did in that time span, I think it was a complete failure.
Let me start this off by saying this. If they were completely healthy, never got hurt once throughout Paul George's entire tenure in with the Clippers, they win an NBA championship. I have no doubt in my mind in saying that. But we don't do what ups around here. Paul George's tenure in LA was a complete failure. Kawhi goes to LA. He tells them, I will not come here. I will not sign here unless you go out and get Paul George. Now, you can call that blackmail, extortion, whatever it may be.
Tampering.
You bring me Paul George and I sign here. If not, I'm going to play with LeBron. Clippers were like, you know what? We can't have him going to play with LeBron. We're already LA's little brother. So we're not going to have the finals MVP go and join forces with LeBron and AD. So, you know what? We got you. Go out, we bring in Paul George, we give up our entire future. We give up SGA. We give up there was somebody else in that trade. I can't remember his name right now.
Was it Gallinari?
Gallinari. We give up Gallinari. We give 4 first-rounders who they use on Jalen Williams, one of their best players right now in the Thunder. And there's another player. Forgot the other.
Was it Cason Wallace?
I think it was Cason Wallace or maybe Aaron Wiggins. One of those two guys. But so you give up 4 first-rounders, and then you give up 3 pick swaps. Just for Paul George. When you look back at that may be, not just in basketball, that may be the worst trade to ever happen in any sport. Ever. Because now you give up Paul George for SGA alone might be a bad trade. Looking back at it now. SGA being the the runner-up for MVP, and you just got bounced in the first round? So that trade might be the worst trade ever. And then, you have them 5 years. 5 years. They can't stay healthy. When they do stay healthy, he doesn't play well. Only year he really played well was 2021. And then he gets hurt again in 2022. This year, Kawhi gets hurt. Paul George plays like trash for a majority of the playoffs. So it was an absolute failure what Paul George did in LA with the Clippers. Again, I have no doubt in my mind in saying that. And again, you pay him so much money. I also have no idea where the Clippers go from now. I have no idea what they do. They brought back James Harden. They're giving him $35 million a year. You extended Kawhi. What else do you have? You have no future. You have no picks. And it's not like you have young guys on the roster you can develop. Or at least you've started developing. The only young guy I can think of is Bones Highland. I mean, you still have Norman Powell, who's older.
What about what's his name?
Terrence Mann. Terrence Mann.
Is it Trey or Terrence Mann?
Trey Mann is on the Thunder. Terrence Mann is the wing on the Clippers. You have Terrence Mann, who, I mean, is not going to be one of those. It's not going to be a franchise guy. Zubac. I mean, I don't know where the Clippers go from now.
Don't throw Zubac in that conversation. He was ass this past season. He couldn't defend the paint to save his life. That was their biggest weakness, was the paint, the center position, and Zubac did not make it any better. So the fact that you threw his name in there is basically just throwing up names at that point, bro.
Because I mean, and I think that alone defines the Clippers right now. Because where do you go from here? Where do you go? You have nowhere to go from here. You have no future, no picks. You have Kawhi and James Harden, 2 injury-prone old superstars. Again, do you build around them and hope you can compete in the West for a championship? Because again, we talk about all the time, these teams that are in the West aren't going anywhere. The Lakers aren't going anywhere. The Timberwolves, the Thunder, the Nuggets, not going anywhere. The Suns not going anywhere.
Could you imagine if this was 2018 with Paul George and with Westbrook? Like, imagine all these guys in 2018 on the same team, bro. Like, this would have been a nasty ass team 8 years ago.
A disgusting team.
6 years ago.
Excuse me. They would have been fantastic. It's just at that point it would be the fit if they would have fit, how well they would have fit together. But they all would have been in their prime. Now that's not the case. It's just not. So I don't know where the Clippers go from here. You still have Tyronn Lue, who's I believe one of the best coaches in the league. But again, when he's healthy, I think Kawhi is a top 15 player in the league. At his best, James Harden is a top 20, top 15 player in the league. So I don't know. Again, I don't know if you obviously you open up cap space by letting Paul George go. They're trying to trade Russell Westbrook right now. I don't know where the Clippers go. I honestly don't. So it'll be very interesting to see what they do for the rest of free agency and for the rest of the offseason to see how they build that roster. But last thing I didn't want to get to, Klay Thompson has yet to sign a deal with the team. Right now, the favorites are the Lakers, Dallas, and I believe there's one other team. But this morning, Stephen A. did go on record and say that he's heard Klay Thompson is going to Dallas. So I want to ask you, Kevin, where's the best fit for Klay Thompson to go? Is it LA? Is it Dallas? Or is it somebody else?
I thought you were gonna name the team that I saw this on another post this morning. This team just lost one of their spot up shooters. He declined his option, so I don't know if they're gonna bring him back. No, actually, did KCP sign with someone else?
Orlando.
Okay, so because I just get it away. I saw the post about the Nuggets looking and bringing in Klay Thompson, and I think that's an amazing pickup for them. I think it's a pickup where you lose your shooting guard in KCP, so why not bring in someone like Klay who can give you similar play style like a KCP does. I think it's a play there. He's a player where Denver should look, that's a position that we need to bring in, and I think the best available player is Klay Thompson. He can offer you spot up shooting. He can offer you defense from time to time. He's not like how he once was. And I think it's a sign where if Denver wants to go back to the finals, I think they need to bring in someone like Klay. Now, depending on how much Klay wants to take a pay cut or how much how much space that Denver even has on that team, with the likes of Aaron Gordon, Jamal Murray, and then Jokic being on that contract. So it just depends on how much cap space that they have to bring in someone like Klay Thompson. I think that's a good player for them to bring in. But I do like that Dallas one. I think Dallas bringing in someone like Klay is going to help them out a lot, especially with the loss of Derrick Jones. He's no longer there. So I think you bring in someone like Klay who can be a good spot up threat. He's not going to defend the best of wing or guard like Derrick Jones will, but I think it's where you're missing production, especially behind Kyrie and Luka, where those two guys, when they're hot, they win games, but when they're cold, they are just out of the games. So you bring in someone like Klay who can be that third piece, that third option. I think that's a good piece to bring in as well.
I think Klay to Denver is very interesting. Obviously, after losing KCP, and in terms of the Denver Nuggets losing KCP, I think that's the bigger story rather than KCP signing with Orlando. KCP has been a instrumental piece to that Denver Nuggets team, especially when they won the championship. He was a huge piece to that team. He used to hit big threes. He played very good defense. He was a huge piece to that team winning, just like he was this year. He had a huge piece. He had a huge part in those Denver Nuggets success. So I think the Nuggets losing KCP is the bigger story rather than Orlando getting him. I think that's a great pickup for Orlando. But Klay Thompson, I think, would be a good fit in Denver. The problem is he brings the shooting, yes. He does not bring the same level of intensity and or defense that KCP brings, as well as the intangibles. KCP was one of the leaders on that team. Klay Thompson is not any type of a leader. He's just not. He's not exactly going to go get the 50-50 balls. He's not going to be the first one on the ground in terms of diving. He's not going to be that hustle guy. Yes, he can hit you. He can make a few open shots. In fact, he can make a lot of open shots when he's on. But that is all he can do at this point in his career. Again, he's not going to play elite level defense. He's not going to get those 50-50 balls. He's not going to dive on the floor and be the first one to the floor. And that's what KCP did. And that's what KCP, that was his impact that he had his entire career in Denver. So again, it would be a good fit, but he wouldn't be able to bring the same level of intensity and impact that KCP had. In Dallas, I think he would fit in very well in Dallas. He would. So, you mentioned it. Dallas lost Derrick Jones. Derrick Jones did go and sign with those very Clippers we were just talking about. But Dallas did go out and bring in Najee Marshall. Najee Marshall, I think, is a very good pickup for them. He can shoot the ball a little bit. He's a very good defender. Obviously, in his time with New Orleans, he came off the bench, played some defense, maybe hit a three or two whenever they needed him to. But Klay Thompson, I think, would be a very good fit in Denver. Najee Marshall, they bring in the defender, and then Klay Thompson bring in some shooting. In baseball, I'll use a baseball analogy for this. The D-backs did it this year. In baseball, you have a designated hitter, and a few years ago, they made the designated hitter universal. So every team has a designated hitter. A lot of teams go out and get one designated hitter for the whole season. They designate that guy just to hit, specifically for that reason. The D-backs, what they did this year, they went and got a left-handed designated hitter and a right-handed designated hitter to fill those two spots. I think Dallas can do something along the lines of that, right? A lot of the times you want to go get a 3 and D player all in one player. But maybe you go and get Najee Marshall, the defender, and Klay Thompson, the shooter. So you get two different guys for those two different scenarios to fill both of those roles. So Klay Thompson could be a very good fit in there. He'd get a lot of open shots, especially playing with Kyrie and Luka. A lot of open shots. He would just have to knock them down. And throughout his entire career, he has been able to knock them down. So I think he'd be a very good fit. Apparently, there was, I think Woj reported it. LeBron reached out to Klay Thompson. He called Klay Thompson, and apparently they had a conversation. How that conversation went, I have no idea. But a lot would have to happen in order for the Lakers to acquire Klay Thompson in terms of like first and second apron rules, cap space rules, and things of that nature. So Klay Thompson's going to be very interesting to see where he goes. I'd imagine he signs within the next day or two somewhere. So that'll be very interesting. And Kev, I forgot we did forget to bring it up. DeJounte Murray was traded from the Hawks to the Pelicans. I think the Pelicans absolutely fleeced the Atlanta Hawks. They did not have to give up nearly as much as I thought they would have to give up for a player like DeJounte Murray. What are your initial thoughts of that trade?
When I looked at that trade, I thought the trade should have been around the same type of scenario as when the Knicks and the Nets went down with the Mikal Bridges trade. I thought Atlanta would have gotten more from that, but they didn't get much in return. They didn't, New Orleans didn't have to give up much for DeJounte, and I think it's a win by New Orleans, like you said. Especially now, because all they gave up was Dyson Daniels in that trade package.
Dyson Daniels, Larry Nance, and I think a few second rounders.
Not even a first round pick.
Yeah.
And Larry Nance Jr., he's a good dunker, but what else does he offer at the time of his career right now? Dyson Daniels is still a very young player where you could probably develop him into a good guard, but he's not gonna give you the same type of production as DeJounte Murray or even half of what.
Sorry, made a mistake. So the Pelicans, they did send 2 first-round picks along with Larry Nance and Dyson Daniels, and I believe 1 second-round pick. So that's on me. That's my mistake.
No, you're good. You're good. Like I was saying, Dyson Daniels, he's a very tall, lengthy guard, but we haven't seen much of what he could do. I'm still very high on Dyson Daniels, but as the year goes by, we're seeing less and less about Dyson Daniels, and I'm starting to lose hope in him. I was hoping he would be a good detrimental piece to that Pelican squad. Now we won't get to see that no more, and then now he's playing with the Hawks. But onto the Pelicans, I think it's an amazing trade for them. I think they bring in someone that can take over at the guard position, especially if BI is having a rough night, if Zion isn't available to play on some nights. I think DeJounte taking on that role at times as a second option or a third option, I think it's perfect. I think it's perfect for him. I think it's perfect for the Pelicans. I think this trade makes him a top 6 team in the West, in my opinion. I think it brings them out of the play-in spot and it brings them into a playoff team, especially with the trade of Dejounte Murray because of what he can offer to the team. You know, defensively. Before he went to Atlanta, back in San Antonio, he's one of the best defensive guards in the league. Um, and not to mention his playmaking too. He's one of the best, playmakers in the league. So he offers that, and his shooting only got better too. He's a decent shooter. He's progressed his shooting over time. His defense over in the last couple of seasons hasn't been as good as it was in San Antonio, but I think maybe it was just the lack of effort, the lack of energy playing for the Atlanta Hawks. So if he can somehow bring back that defensive intensity, that's gonna be a scary team, especially if you have a big three in Bi, Dejounte, and Zion. That's a solid big three in my opinion. Those three guys, they have different play styles, so that could play off of each other pretty well. New Orleans is a team to watch out for. They're one of the teams where they could make another move for another player and watch out for that team.
I really like this trade for New Orleans. Again, I think they didn't have to give up too much for Dejounte Murray. But bringing in Dejounte Murray, you bring in defense, you bring in leadership, you bring in hustle, you bring in intangibles, and again, you bring in a guy who can score. You know, you bring in a guy who can score, go get his own bucket, a guy who can facilitate. So I do really like this for New Orleans. But CJ McCollum, he's gonna have to do some Zillow shopping. He's gonna have to do some house shopping because he's out of there. He's gone. I don't think you can have CJ McCollum and DeJounte Murray on the same roster and for that team to be able to work. CJ McCollum will be looking for a new team. No. Let me rephrase that. The New Orleans Pelicans will be looking for a new team for CJ McCollum. Because you just saw what happened with DeJounte Murray and Trae Young. That didn't work out. So what in the world makes you think DeJounte Murray and CJ McCollum will work out? So CJ McCollum will be looking for a new team. But again, I love the defense that you bring in with DeJounte Murray. He's still gonna, DeJounte Murray, maybe not the facilitator that CJ McCollum is, but he can still absolutely facilitate. So you bring that in alongside with the defense and the leadership that he brings, and you bring him in with Zion and Bi, who is still looking for a new contract. So we'll definitely be awaiting that. But DeJounte Murray is going to be a very good player for the Pelicans. I absolutely believe that. I think that trade makes them a better team. But again, I think TJ McCollum is gone. He will be looking. The Pelicans will be looking for a new team for him. So that'll be interesting to see where he lands.
What if he lands in Milwaukee, teams up with Dame?
I would like that a lot.
Because
I would like that a lot for Milwaukee.
A lot of these trades that go down throughout the whole entire league, Jamal,
mm-hmm.
they tend to trade players to the opposite conference.
Right.
And Milwaukee and New Orleans, they're in two different conferences. So I think if you're in New Orleans, you look to trade to a team in the East where you don't have to see McCollum more than twice. I think a reunion of him and Dame in Milwaukee could be something where Milwaukee fans would actually be kind of open to, especially with Middleton being your guys their third option, and at times he doesn't even show up. He's very inconsistent now, and defensively he's not as good anymore. So I feel like if you bring someone like CJ, who can be that third option behind Dame and Giannis, that could help them out a lot too.
Yeah, that brings in more offense. I think that'd be a very, very good trade. Now it would take away some defense from Milwaukee, but I think at this point, I think Milwaukee might be one of those teams. Now they used to be a very good defensive team, and 2021 when they won the championship, 2022 they were a very good defensive team. Now it looks like they're moving towards the offensive side of the ball, so that would kind of fit their mold. I think there's a few teams. I think Miami would be a very good fit for TJ McCollum. Put him at the one alongside Jimmy Butler and Bam, and then still bring Tyler Hero off the bench, Jaime Jaquez, guys along that nature. Orlando, I think, would be a very good option. Again, put CJ McCollum at the one, have him alongside KCP, Paulo, Franz Wagner, however you say his name. I think that'd be another very good option. So there are definitely options for CJ McCollum out there for him to be able to go and have an impact on the team, and possibly contending team. So with McCollum, again, he's not one of those superstars that's gonna average 30 and 10 and do all these things. He just makes your team better in certain ways. He has a certain impact that he brings to your team. I think he'd be great for a young team. I think he'd be fantastic for a young team. Again, I would really love him in Orlando. I love him in Orlando. I think he'd have an extremely good impact on Paolo Banchero and Cole Anthony and even Markel Fultz. So, and again, let alone Paolo Banchero. So, I think it'd be very, very fun to watch him with a young team. Now, this Pelicans team has had success, but not to the level that they've kind of wanted to have success. So it'll be very interesting to see what happens with CJ McCollum. Maybe they actually do keep CJ McCollum. Who knows? But in terms of that, Kev, is there anything else? Because we'll definitely, again, I'm sure some more stuff will happen tomorrow, or by tomorrow, maybe I should say.
Don't be surprised if Denver does actually sign Klay Thompson, though.
I wouldn't be surprised. I would not be surprised. But I think that story of the Celtics selling the majority ownership is kind of wild. We might have to get that. We might have to get into that a little bit more tomorrow. So I think that might be a bigger deal than people are making it out to be. I think there might be something going on behind the scenes. But that's going to close it out for today. Lots of NBA free agency talk. Tomorrow we'll get into some more football and other things. But after coming off the day of free agency that just happened, definitely wanted to put an emphasis on NBA free agency day one. Again, a lot happening. Obviously, Paul George going to the Sixers, KCP in Orlando, the Celtics extending Derek White, Andre Drummond going to Philly. So a lot of things happen. Derek Jones going to Clippers. A lot of things happen. So I definitely want to put an emphasis on NBA free agency today. But tomorrow we'll definitely get into some more football stuff. I believe John will be back tomorrow, so maybe a little baseball stuff. We'll see. But we'll be back tomorrow. Kev, you back tomorrow?
I just gotta remind you when you guys talk about baseball, just put me in the back. So now you guys are done talking about it, you guys can bring me back onto the show.
Okay, bet. All good. Bet I got you. Somebody.
Sway.
Sway. When we talked about CP3 to the Spurs a little bit earlier in the show, a little bit towards the beginning, and so that was my favorite. That was my favorite free agent signing of the entire day yesterday. I love CP3 to the Spurs. I think he's going to have a huge impact on that team. So we definitely did talk about it a little earlier in the show. So that'll be Rob to Minnesota. That's another thing. Rob Dillingham to Minnesota, I think, is going to be huge, especially for his career. And then he gets a chance to learn under Mike Conley, who was, quite frankly, one of the best point guards of the 2010s. If we're being completely honest, yes, he was never an all-star, but he was still one of the best point guards of the 2010s, especially when it comes to winning, at least in the regular season. So he gets a chance to learn under Mike Conley, and it's something the Suns should have done with Tyrese Halliburton a few years ago. But because we had CP3, they didn't want to draft another point guard. So, again, and you see how that turned out. Tyrese Halliburton, one of the best point guards in the league, and the Suns are looking for one. So, some of the decisions the Suns make, I don't understand. But again, that's going to close it out. I got to go. I got to start getting ready for work. But we'll be back tomorrow. Again, more free agency, more football, maybe a little baseball. But for yours truly, for Kev, we out.